Brandon Cutler here from AEW, and I hope you guys have an awesome podcast with the MonsterCast.
What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful here. You're watching the MonsterCast with Jack and Ryan. A big shout out to those fellas. Good people. Check them out.
Here's your host of the MonsterCast, the Straight Edge Monster, Jack and Ryan.
Necro Eric says he's not hyped for Battle in the Valley whatsoever. NJPW Strong is a joke compared to actual Japan. None of the matches will get time in USA and won't be booked correctly. But that's the way it goes.
It's the same booker. Gato books all of them.
Yeah, it's still Gato.
And
like,
also,
look at the card. The card is clearly going to be booked by him, not anybody else.
Yeah, you've got Okada Tanahashi for the title now. You've got Jay White versus Eddie Kingston, which has been building forever. And Eddie Kingston will probably go over since Jay White's like on his, leaving tour or whatever. You've got Mercedes versus Kyrie, which should be good for the IWGP Women's. I mean, there's good stuff on the card. Now, have other strong shows kind of been, in fact, especially like their weekly shit or like the one-off stuff that they tend to do? It's not great, I agree, but I think this card is good enough to where that'll not be an issue. They've got the other shit on there too, like Tom Lawler versus who's Tom Lawler? Tom Lawler versus Homicide, I think. Like stuff like that, it's whatever. But some of the stuff that they've added sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just using straight up New Japan Strong roster, yeah, next level bad, that's fine. It's not fucking. But you're not gonna tell me that Okada versus Tanahashi in the main event for the IWGP title is next level. That doesn't make any sense. That's literally your top two stars in New Japan. That's like saying that just because Omega versus Danielson on Rampage is bad because it's on Rampage. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Also, the being booked for AEW fans, like who was Will Ospreay versus Omega for at Wrestle Kingdom?
Why do you think they won't get time when it's a pay-per-view and there's no time constraints? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why do you think they're not going to get time?
They've got some crazy. Isn't already like 10 matches on the card or something like that, 10 or 11. They've already got like a lot of matches on the card. I mean, here's the thing with the time thing that is true. What they did with the time in the women's match was kind of fucked, and I hope they don't do that again. That was weird. I didn't like that. I don't know if that's because they haven't booked enough women's matches to know if this is going to be a consistent New Japan issue or not. But hopefully they get a little bit more time for sure. But what I will say about the time thing is you could build enough of this card around your Okada versus Tanahashi and even the Zack Sabre Jr. match with Clark Connors. I mean, you've got matches on there that should be getting more time and maybe take off some of the stuff like the Motor City Machine Guns match or the Kenta match versus I know it's for the championship. Fred Rosser. That kind of stuff. If you take that off, then yeah, it does become more of a card for AEW fans, but they would also get more time. The thing about booking a card for American audiences in America is that it just makes sense to do.
Yeah, okay, so if I'm booking a New Japan Strong titled event, to not have the New Japan Strong titles defended would be kind of dumb, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to have Motor City Machine Guns on there. You have to have Fred Rosser on there. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But I mean, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Clark Connors is on that card. I don't think that's for AEW audience. AEW audience, I mean, they all know who Zack Sabre Jr. is, but it's because a lot of them did come over from being fans of New Japan initially. Like a lot of current AEW fans were originally New Japan fans before AEW existed.
I have to disagree. I don't know how New Japan Strong is like AEW when AEW has the highest wrestling rate in America compared to non-wrestling. That's not even close.
Yeah. As far as percentage of the show taken up by wrestling.
Like, how much wrestling do you want it to be? That's literally most of the card is already wrestling. AEW is unwatchable. Well, we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that by a long shot. Yeah. It's the only wrestling show I watch that I make sure I watch every week. And I haven't had that since, who fucking knows, Monday Night Wars maybe? It is good wrestling. What's not good wrestling on it?
Brother, we just had a New Beginning show where one of the co-main events was Tama Tonga versus fucking El Phantasmo. Like, what do you mean? We don't watch wrestling. True.
We don't watch wrestling. That's why we have a wrestling show every week talking
And
about
just
wrestling.
Cover all the New Japan results, which is the company that you're basically talking about, like, being great. But, yeah, true. We need another House of Torture 3-man match. That's what we need.
You think the Tama Tonga El Phantasmo match was better than most things happening in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Your bar is
That
very
Tama-
low.
That Tama Tonga match is better than most things happen. That's crazy. All right, you know. Agreed. It's
Certainly a
just
take. Certainly a take.
I feel like the only good thing about that match was him ending it with the J Driller. Other than that, it's so fucking boring. I like Tama Tonga too. I liked him enough to try to get him to unblock me on Twitter. You're right. I don't want this. All right. Moving on.
All right, we don't watch wrestling. All right, cool. All right, so we're going to clear this off, and we'll get into some more wrestling.
2 hours later.
Since Necro Eric is still on here. You guys just straight ignore the best wrestling on purpose. This is why I say AEW has ruined wrestling in a way. You got fans that don't even watch wrestling now because of that company. Who doesn't watch wrestling now because of AEW?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but you have another wrestling company that you're essentially saying people don't watch wrestling because they watch this wrestling. It's still wrestling. Whether
I
you
could
think
make the
it's
argument
bad
that I
or
watch
not,
more
first of all, it
wrestling
doesn't-
because AEW exists. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
It doesn't make- Also, you have people that go from AEW to other promotions. You think people were watching fucking GCW and stuff before AEW existed? No, they weren't. But they are now because you got guys like Moxley going over there and having matches there.
You're telling me that because AEW exists, now that I keep up with New Japan, WWE, and AEW when I wasn't keeping up with AEW when it didn't exist, so I went from 2 companies to 3 companies, now I'm watching less wrestling. That doesn't even make any sense.
Doesn't make sense.
All right, man. I don't know where you learned math at, but 3 is greater than 2.
I mean,
And
just
with the
in-
size of what's the size roster that AEW has, and now owning Ring of Honor, technically I watch 4, and their roster is so fucking big that it's like 2-3 promotions in one. And I'm watching, and we watch Dark, we watch Elevation, we watch BTE, we watch all the shit that goes on with them. They watch AEW for fuck's sakes. Like, so I don't understand how we watch less wrestling and consume less wrestling. Doesn't even
and
make any
here's
sense.
the thing too: when you have people going over to AAA or whatever to have their mixed tag matches or having the mega championship, things like that, that also draws in more people to those promotions too. AEW existing and having these relationships with other brands has put more eyes on other promotions that did not have them before.
When
1000%.
Ray Phoenix versus Kenny Omega for the AAA mega title happened in Mexico, and everybody went to go watch that match because they knew who Ray Phoenix and Kenny Omega were, and they knew they were going to tear the house down. How are you going to tell me that they didn't go out of their way to watch more wrestling than not because of AEW's existence? Doesn't even
Dude,
make
one of
any
their-
sense. That doesn't even
one of
match
their-
up, dude. Doesn't even
one
match
of their
up.
biggest numbers ever, just on the back of Kenny Omega. Yeah, it's a very weird take.
So when AEW exists and everybody wants Forbidden Door to happen, and Forbidden Door does all these great numbers and all this stuff, that happened because AEW didn't exist. Like they would have watched more wrestling without that happening.
Yeah,
No.
let's look at it this way. What's the biggest gate and biggest buys a New Japan Strong pay-per-view has ever done? And then compare that to Forbidden Door. How many more eyes do you think AEW existing and having the talent that it has brought on to New Japan? Do you know how many people wouldn't know who the fuck Clark Connors is if he didn't have that 4-way match at Forbidden Door? But now he's in a TV title match at this upcoming Strong pay-per-view against Zack Sabre Jr. Like, it's just such a silly thing to say.
Yeah, that's a weird take for sure. But all right. Well, we don't watch any wrestling though. Okay.
We don't.
And
Who's
speaking
Clark-
of,
who's Clark
you know what?
Connors,
I don't know how big it's gonna show up on the screen or not. But wrestling journalists. I need to ask the wrestling journalist a question.
He'll know. He'll know.
Does Necro Eric watch enough wrestling? Why not? Sure, why not?
Here's a fun question.
It doesn't sound
for you.
very convincing there, wrestling journalist. How do you watch enough wrestling? How do you watch enough wrestling, Necro Eric, if you refuse to watch AEW because it's not wrestling?
Yeah, that's weird. Because
you don't watch good wrestling. How do you know if it's good or not if you're not watching it?
Bryan Danielson's there. Kenny Omega's there. John Moxley's there.
Pac.
So here's a weird question too. I just want to ask this if you're still here. You said that the Tama Tonga match is better than most things happening in the U.S. Did you watch the Roosh versus Bryan Danielson match?
Yeah, exactly. Roosh versus
Probably
Bryan
not.
Danielson was insane.
Yeah,
How are you going to tell me that?
Weekly television.
I don't know. Yeah. How many times have we said, like, the past couple of weeks that they had basically a fucking free pay-per-view on weekly television for us? What are you talking about?
I would say that you're biased towards, for whatever reason, you're biased towards AEW and what you think it represents or how you think it's impacted the wrestling landscape in a negative way or whatever, is keeping you from seeing some really good matches. You should go watch the Roosh match and tell me that that's even like in the same league as the Tama Tonga match versus LP that you're trying to hype up. Like it's not even close. Bro.
And the crazy thing is usually like if this was a pedophile right here, if this was a WWE drone, like I would understand the take more. Yeah, I assume he left. I don't care. I'm still gonna talk. So what I don't understand with Necro Eric's viewpoint is you can't sit there and say that you watch all this wrestling, but then you literally say in the same breath, hey, you guys don't watch wrestling because I don't watch AEW. That doesn't even make it doesn't even go together. Like, okay, so if you don't watch AEW and you're missing all this good wrestling because you're just dismissing it as good wrestling because for whatever reason, I don't know why. I guess you're just mad because Kenny Omega left New Japan. Which is what it seems like. You're just mad that New Japan and Japan got a lot of wrestlers from New Japan to come over to AEW, and you're just salty about it. Kind of like when a band is underground and then they get popular, and you're mad at the band for getting popular instead of just being happy for them and that everybody else knows them. This is how that's coming off to me. But me and Ryan, we hear a good match. Like you just posted a lot of great matches that you thought were really good in the chat. I might go out of my way to go watch some of those matches because I think you might know what you're talking about. But then you spew off dumb shit that doesn't make any sense right after you're talking about some AEW isn't good wrestling, which is asinine to the 10th degree. And then we have the open-mindedness to actually go out and watch stuff on the outside of stuff that we watch regularly, just so we might be able to talk about it. Or when we do our Monster Awards at the end of the year, they seem more credible and stuff like that. And then you come in here and say that AEW isn't wrestling. If AEW isn't wrestling, then what's WWE? And you can't tell me that you watch WWE if you don't watch AEW if you're watching it for strictly wrestling reasons, right? So that's two major promotions you don't watch, but we're the ones that don't watch wrestling. Make it make sense. So wrestling only exists away from North America, right? In your eyes. That's what I'm gathering from this.
Yeah.
So GCW has better wrestling than AEW. No, it doesn't.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing about that take about people watching AEW made people watch less wrestling or whatever. One of the main reasons that GCW is doing so well right now is literally because of their AEW cross talent stuff. So it's silly. It
was like a dude. Okay, hey. Here you go.
You don't know shit! Your opinions suck! You fucking mark!
There you go. That we got to free mark that tweet in chat today. Congratulations to Necro Eric. And the sad thing is, I don't even dislike you or anything. I'm probably still gonna go check out those matches. But that's just an asinine thing to come in here and just accuse us of not watching wrestling when we have a wrestling show every fucking week where we talk about the top stories and give our opinions on everything. Like that was so uncalled for, unwarranted, and kind of just out of left field, out of nowhere, when we've been nothing but nice to you in the chat and acknowledge your chats rather in chat and go through the matches and stuff. And we've talked to you several times throughout our show, and it was just, that's kind of a dick move, like a douchebag move, honestly. I don't hate you or anything. I'm not going to block you or ban you, but that's fucking uncalled for. And you're not going to sit here and tell me that I don't watch wrestling when I've been watching wrestling since I was 16 fucking months old. So when you were 16 months old, were you watching wrestling? Were you watching wrestling when you were 16 months old? Because I was. I guess it wasn't real wrestling because it was Ultimate Warrior versus Hogan. Shut the fuck up. If the bell rings and there's two people in the fucking middle of the ring, then it's fucking wrestling. Shut up.
So the funny thing is, dude, some of the matches he mentioned, I did watch. I did watch Mike Bailey versus Blake Christian, and I watched Jordan Oliver versus Mike Bailey from GCW. And I did watch the tag match that he's talking about, the Maki Ito tag match. So from the Max Heart Finals, I did watch that.
So I got a question for you, as someone who watched the Mike Bailey versus Blake Christensen match, right? Who are guys that, unless there's a fucking cruiserweight division remade in the fucking WWE for a fucking fourth time, they're not gonna go there and be taken seriously. If there's not a Ring of Honor weekly show where they have the pure title or the TV title, they're not gonna be taken seriously over in AEW. So how does that equivalent to fucking better wrestling than AEW just because they had one good match together? That I could go out there and say PWG from 2011 is better wrestling than anything out there if I wanted to. If you're a fan of that thing, that's fine, but don't come in this fucking chat on my show and tell me that I don't watch wrestling. That's fucking stupid.
Yeah, well, you didn't watch the Bang Bros versus the Rascals, so that's really what it was, bro. Because we need to know.
I think I'll sleep okay. I don't think it's going to be making any top 10 lists this year. I think I'll be all right.
The other weird thing, too, is just holding that position so hard that you can't admit that the Tama Tonga versus LP match was kind of mid, and then trying to say that it's better than stuff that you literally have admitted that you haven't seen. It's very strange to me.
And when we do, I know we're going to do the prediction shows. I know we're about to cut them off. We're about to cut off this and do our prediction shows. But I Battle in the Valley, especially because he mentioned that by name, that it was going to be unwatchable, which I guess he tells the future too. I want to, when we watch Battle in the Valley, I want to count how many matches they have that are better than El Phantasmo versus Tama Tonga.
Probably about 9 of them, of the 11. I can already tell you. About 9 of them. And here's the thing too, saying that it's an AEW card. Bro, they just added Okada versus Tanahashi. Where's the AEW in that? Sabre
How
Jr.
is Kairi Sane versus Mercedes Moné, two people that were in WWE that are now in New Japan? How's that an AEW match? How is any way that AEW match?
It's a WWE card, brother. Because they got Leo Rush on there too.
Yeah, it's a WWE card more than an AEW card. I agree.
Yeah. Just silly shit. Whatever.
But we don't watch wrestling. Okay.
I don't watch
All right, well, we'll do our 2 prediction shows, and we'll keep doing our show every week, and you can keep coming in here and telling us that we don't watch anything as we're covering it and giving our opinions on it. Okay, cool. Because there's one thing that we don't do on the show, and that's give opinions on shit that we didn't watch. So when you come in there in the chat and you list all this stuff, and I'm just like, oh, I haven't watched any of those. I've been very busy. And then I tell you straight up that I have not watched those, but I might go out of my way to watch those. And I do not cover them on the show like I think I watched them, like a fucking Dangor fucking tweet where he thinks he knows who Jay White is now magically, and he's going to have all these ideas for him, but then literally in the next tweet says he's never watched AEW or doesn't watch AEW or doesn't watch New Japan rather. So how the fuck do you have ideas for stories with him and fucking Cody already based off of shit that happened in Japan? So I'm not that person. I'm not going to come in here and talk about something that I didn't watch or that I don't really know or have a handle on. So don't come in here with that bullshit. If I'm talking about wrestling on a wrestling show, then I watch wrestling. Sorry. I'm sorry that triggers you in some way. All right, that's the show.
You good?
Yeah, I'm great.
Okay.
I'm great, dude.
Hey guys, did you like that video? If so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also catch full episodes of the MonsterCast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And you can also catch us live every Sunday on Twitch. All links in the description below, along with some sweet merch from yours truly, the MonsterCast. Deuces.